What if I told you that before the pyramids of Egypt were even completed, Native Americans were building massive earthen monuments to bury their dead? And some of these mounds are larger than the Great Pyramid's base. Burial wasn't just a way to honor the dead in ancient America, it was a way to touch the divine. From the ice-blanketed plains of the Arctic to the dense jungles of the Amazon, death meant more than an ending. It was a rite of passage, a transformation, a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms. Now let's uncover the astonishing ways ancient Americans treated their dead, and what these forgotten rituals reveal about the empires that ruled before 1492. Let's begin in North America, specifically in what is now the Ohio and Mississippi River valleys. Long before Columbus, even before the rise of Rome, the Adena culture was building burial mounds as tall as 4-story buildings. These weren't just piles of dirt. They were sacred, mathematically aligned, and spiritually designed to house the honored dead. At the Miamisburg Mound in Ohio, which dates to around 800 BCE, archaeologists found multiple layers of burials, each one carefully placed with pipe effigies, bear claws, and ceremonial objects. Then came the Hopewell culture, a civilization that expanded the Adena's burial traditions into complex geometric earthworks like the Great Serpent Mound. Some mounds were aligned with lunar cycles and solar events, hinting at an advanced understanding of astronomy and spirituality. The Hopewell buried their dead with mica from the Appalachians, obsidian from the Rockies, and seashells from the Gulf of Mexico, proof of vast trade networks. Fast forward to the Mississippian civilization, centered at Cahokia, near modern-day St. Louis. With a population of over 20,000 at its peak, Cahokia was North America's largest city before 1492. At Monk's Mound, the largest earthen pyramid in the Americas, elites were buried with sacrificial victims, possibly slaves or war captives. One grave, known as Mound 72, contained over 300 bodies, including a warrior chief laid on a bed of shell beads, forming the shape of a falcon. In the far north, where trees do not grow and the ground is frozen year-round, indigenous Arctic groups like the Inuit developed completely different burial traditions. Bodies were often placed on the ice, left to the elements, or stored in stone tombs. Among the Tununimut of Baffin Island, shamans believed that the soul could not ascend unless the body returned to the sky. This gave rise to sky burials, where bodies were elevated on platforms exposed to birds, wind, and snow. But these were not neglectful burials, they were sacred. The Arctic landscape became a cathedral of silence, where even death had to harmonize with nature. Archaeologists discovered a burial on Beechey Island, where the preserved remains of 19th century Inuit show burial customs that hadn't changed for centuries. Now, let's head south, to the towering Andes Mountains. The Chavin, one of the earliest Andean cultures, believed death was a transformation into a divine state. Priests were buried deep in chambers, beneath temples, surrounded by jaguar carvings, twisted serpents, and trippy stone motifs, suggesting psychedelic rituals may have accompanied burial. Then came the Nazca, who buried their dead in underground tombs wrapped in colorful textiles and masks. In some cases, heads were removed and turned into trophy skulls, decorated with cords and beads. But perhaps no civilization took burial more seriously than the Inca Empire. In Inca society, the dead didn't just rest, they ruled. Mummified emperors were kept in palaces, dressed in fine garments, and brought out during festivals. They advised rulers, through priests and mediums. In death, they owned land, servants, and livestock. In 1533, the Spanish witnessed Inca priests consulting Pachacuti's mummy, believed to control rainfall and war. The mummy of Emperor Huayna Capac was said to have traveled across the empire after his death, carried in golden litters. Moving into Mesoamerica, the Maya had one of the most elaborate conceptions of the afterlife. Death was seen as a journey through Xibalba, the underworld, filled with gods of death, trials, and traps. Maya kings were buried beneath their pyramids, most famously Pakal the Great of Palenque, whose jade mask and sarcophagus, discovered in 1952, revealed that he was buried with hieroglyphic inscriptions that charted his journey into the afterlife. Some tombs were painted blood red, and bones stained with cinnabar, a mercury-based pigment symbolizing power and rebirth. In the city of Copan, nobles were buried with obsidian blades, stingray spines, and carvings of Chak, the rain god, symbolizing fertility through death. The Maya believed death was just the start of a divine transformation. Even children were buried with offerings, showing that death rituals weren't reserved for elites. Now to the Aztecs, whose funerary customs are often misunderstood. While many know about human sacrifice, fewer realize that Aztec burials were complex and symbolic. Warriors who died in battle, or women who died in childbirth, were considered blessed and taken to Tonatiuhitlan, the House of the Sun. Others journeyed to Mictlan, the underworld, which took 4 years to reach, requiring 9 levels, rivers of blood, obsidian hills, and a dog to guide you. Burials often included obsidian knives, maize, and dogs buried alongside humans to help them cross the river of death. In 2021, archaeologists found a mass burial near Mexico City with ritual objects, confirming that Aztecs buried their dead with great care, even when they sacrificed them. In the Amazon rainforest, tribes like the Yanomami and Tupi had burial practices adapted to the humid environment. Bodies were cremated and ashes mixed with fermented drinks, consumed in ceremonies by the living to keep the dead's spirit close. Others practiced tree burials, where bodies were left in baskets hanging high above the forest floor, to avoid ground predators and allow spirits to rise into the canopy. These rituals emphasized unity with nature. Death wasn't feared, it was embraced as a return to the forest gods. Carbon dating of burial sites in the upper Amazon shows ceremonial cremations dating back to 1000 BCE. These burial traditions weren't random, they were spiritual technologies, telling us how indigenous peoples saw the world. In North America, burial mounds aligned with stars and seasons. In the Andes, death affirmed political and cosmic order. In Mesoamerica, the underworld was a path, not a punishment. In the Amazon, death returned you to nature. All of it points to this. Before 1492, native civilizations had deeply philosophical, scientific, and spiritual views of death. They mapped the afterlife with the same care they mapped the stars. Our ancestors in the Americas didn't fear death. They understood it. They buried their dead not to forget, but to remember, not to separate, but to connect. So before we say that ancient America was uncivilized, maybe we should visit the burial mounds, the mummy temples, the sky towers, and tree graves, and listen to the stories the dead still tell. What do these forgotten burial rites teach us about how we treat our dead today? Why are these histories still left out of mainstream education? Which of these burial practices do you find most surprising, and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this with someone who thinks native history began in 1492. And don't forget to subscribe to native historian, where hidden history comes to life.